We're back. Mike Griffith is joining us. We haven't we've seen Mike, but we haven't been here in a while, so it's good to see you, Mike. Thank you for joining us. It's been a crazy show. Let's talk about the Dogs, because Kirby Smart said what Kirby Smart usually does. He's thinking about one thing tomorrow, but there's a lot of noise out there about this team. What do you think?
Well, let's talk about Georgia. We haven't talked about them all year.
No.
They're only the #1 team in the country. They're only the back-to-back national champions. They've only won 22 games in a row. You sure you don't want to talk about Colorado or Alabama or anybody but Georgia? Because all year long, all I've heard about is everybody else in the country but Georgia. And I don't get it.
Mike, I don't. This is not a debate, but I seem to remember seeing you. Where did I see you? In Tuscaloosa. You were in Gainesville.
Yeah.
It's nice of you to finally show up and cover the Dogs.
Well, it's nice that they finally got an opponent with a little bit of punch to them. And by the way, this schedule that we had driven into the ground and everyone telling us all off season how terrible Georgia's schedule was, I see 2 undefeated teams left on their schedule, right? They got Kentucky. Let's look at the last 3 undefeated teams in the SEC, by the way. For all those people that tell us how great the SEC West is, let's realize that the last 3 undefeated teams in the league are in the SEC East Division.
Slow down a second, Mike.
I'm just saying. Is this too far off the narrative? I don't want to rock the boat too far here.
I don't want to go scorched earth here, but if Missouri's I'm thrilled with Missouri. Everybody's happy. But
thrilled.
If Missouri had played LSU's schedule, what do you think their record would be?
I don't know. Could LSU beat Kansas? We can talk about.
You think LSU?
Look, here we go again.
You think Missouri would
Here we go again.
Florida State?
Here, look at this. We couldn't even talk about Georgia for 3 minutes before this had to turn into a Missouri. I'm just saying. So let's talk about Georgia. I'm going to bring it back.
I'm just glad again because I keep up with you, Mike.
I appreciate that.
You have. Have you even been home in the last 6 weeks?
Right?
Have I missed one of your trips? Gainesville?
Yeah.
Tuscaloosa?
Yeah.
Did I miss one?
What? No, we went to Auburn. I was at Auburn for Georgia-Auburn.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't make it.
And I told you that would be that was a good game.
You did.
Hugh Freeze, he's got a good knuckleball, curveball, whatever you want to say.
Sure.
Did a nice job calling plays. The quarterback was able to run the ball, and they were able to fool Georgia on some plays, and that made a difference. They went over 200 yards. First time going back to 2018 LSU that Georgia had given up more than 200 yards rushing. But here's the thing. It was the quarterback doing it. You're not going to do it with a running back like, what's his name, the Vanderbilt guy, Ray Davis, is that his name? Yeah, he's not going to go for 100. You haven't had a 100-yard rusher against Georgia since Najee Harris. At Alabama, you got to go back to the COVID year. So that's not going to happen at Sanford Stadium tomorrow night.
Okay. What is going to happen?
I think Georgia's going to come out, and they're going to be aggressive early on. I think they're going to turn Carson Beck loose to go downfield. Both of these transfers, receivers, Ra Thomas, as well as Dominic Lovett, neither one of these guys has gone over 60 yards receiving this year, and I think that's going to change tomorrow. I'm not sure about Ladd McConkey. They got him back. He came out of the bullpen. He had 3 really big third-down conversion catches. But with that back injury, you just don't know game-time decision. So I think this is the game that the Georgia transfers really make their impact. And, oh, by the way, if you want to look at what happened to Georgia's depth, because I've heard a lot of people, they've said to me, why doesn't Georgia look like they usually look? I said, well, let's look around the country. You've got 16 former Georgia players in the 2 deep everywhere else. You got 11 guys starting at other schools that should be here right now. So
everybody goes through. Alabama's been doing that for 17 years.
The transfer portal's only been around a couple.
Well, but they've been losing players left and right.
Listen, not to this extent. My point is,
what does the transfer portal have to do with these guys going to the NFL?
Well, not going to the NFL. I'm talking about there's players from Georgia.
Oh, players
that are
from Georgia, like at Texas, and other places.
Starting at Alabama.
Oh my goodness.
Starting at Florida.
I thought everybody was laughing at Jermaine Burton a couple of years ago.
Burton.
He couldn't make it here.
Well, nobody said I don't know. Don't tell Mississippi State that. He had about 200 yards receiving.
Yeah, I bet you'd like to. I bet you'd like to have him back.
By the way, that Mississippi State game, that is the last time that an opponent played Georgia within single digits at Sanford Stadium. 16 games in a row, they have won in that stadium by double digits.
Okay.
Pretty that's pretty amazing.
Does somebody have any Dramamine? I'm getting seasick.
It's a lot. I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you.
are.
But this team has done, and I feel like nobody's told the story.
Well, because there really hasn't been a good story to tell. I mean, this.
I guess if Alabama's not winning, it's not a good story.
This impenetrable team was down against South Carolina and was on the ropes against Auburn. And you're trying to convince me that they're the Vince Lombardi Green Bay Packers of '64.
Oh, wait a minute. I didn't say that. Listen, I was talking to the Swamp King today, not the Swamp Thing. I was talking to the Swamp King was here today. He found his way around campus, Tim Tebow.
I noticed him.
And Tebow said there's going to be some tough games. Those Gators won 22 straight games under Urban Meyer in 08 and 09. And Georgia has matched that streak.
But you know what also happened to that team?
They lost in the SEC championship game.
No, they felt, and I talked to the Swamp King about it earlier here today. Well, hopefully most of you out there are watching the Swamp Kings on Netflix. He talked about the pressure that they had.
Right.
I mean, and we've seen it at Alabama. But Kirby Smart was here an hour ago acting like, oh no, we're just none of that matters. Of course it matters when you're the two-time champion. Wow. You're automatic, and you're up here talking about all these great things and how they have.
Yeah, but Paul, at Georgia, pressure is a privilege. Didn't you hear Kirby Smart say that? You're not buying that? You don't think that's their mindset?
I have great respect for Kirby, but I'm not a beat guy, so I don't have to follow the school of Kirby. I'm allowed to think on my own.
You're allowed to think on your own, and I don't have to follow Kirby. I've covered plenty of Hall of Fame coaches, but what sets this guy apart is that every day it's a battle for him. Every day the chip on the shoulder is bigger, regardless of how many wins in a row that he has. We tried to pay him a compliment for having the best record after 100 games in any SEC coach in history, and Kirby said, well, I had an easier schedule.
He doesn't need compliments from the media.
Well, he does, I guess not, because he sure doesn't seem to get much out of him. Like I said, we're going to talk about Deion. We haven't talked about Deion yet. Are we ready to fall on the floor because Deion's won 3 games yet?
Oh, here we go.
I'm just saying. Every time they win a game, they're the greatest. And when they lose, it's somebody else's fault. But Georgia wins 22 in a row, and you can't get game day here. I mean, thank gosh we got SEC Nation to show up.
Well, it's Jamar, can we put the dog schedule on the board here?
Let's look at the schedule. Let's take a look at this.
Game day can go wherever it wants.
Well, they can.
But I do know how the mindset is in terms of where to go. So excuse me. I guess game day should have been here for UT Martin, Ball State, South Carolina, UAB, and by the way, they were here 2 years ago for Kentucky.
They were.
It was a loser game. Maybe they'll be here for Missouri if Missouri's undefeated. Maybe they'll be here for Ole Miss. It's not game day's fault that the schedule's terrible.
No, you're right. I was just poking fun. I know. I'm just waiting. Herb Street told us before the year how Alabama was and Saban was so mad.
And we're sorry that little old SEC Nation's getting trashed by.
Now that is not what happened.
By the Dog King
I said, thank goodness, SEC Nation.
Well, but it was a backhanded compliment.
It was absolutely not.
We would have preferred game day, and I don't blame you.
Wow.
I don't blame you.
You know what? Actually, that's not what I've been hearing. But we're not going to get into who's preferred over who these days between SEC Nation and game. We're not going to go down that avenue. These both great programming.
Well,
There's something for
you're
everybody.
Making me nervous.
No, everybody's got an opinion. Some people like Georgia. Some people aren't bought in, and a lot of the people that are voting Georgia #1 are doing so reluctantly. They say, I can't just take him out of that
earlier.
spot.
Chris Fowler, he said Georgia didn't deserve to be number one.
Well, a lot of people, but who do you put #1? Maybe Texas, because they went into Tuscaloosa. That's a really quality road win. But a lot of people, they don't want to be wrong. They've doubted Georgia before. Kirby's used that to kind of stuff it on him. The irony is that Kirby Smart's telling you he's not sure how good these guys are.
When we come back,
we'll find out.
Griff will be announcing that he's running for the speakership of the House of Representatives. We'll be right back.